Welcome back, everyone. This is part 2 of my interview with Elizabeth Sobol about the classical season. It's back. Bum, 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 bum.
I knew you were going to do that.
Yeah, I know.
Oh my God.
I got a question for you, though.
Okay.
It's probably the most famous 4 notes in history, but it's Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. What happened there?
What do you mean, what happened?
Well, it's 4 notes, but it's the Fifth Symphony.
Oh, okay. Okay. I should have known you were teeing me up for an intro like that, and I totally flubbed it.
The classical season for the Philadelphia Orchestra this year is over the top. This is why we did it in part 2. They're celebrating Beethoven. They have 13 different premieres. They have arguably the best vocal group that you will hear as soloists one night for the performance. So we got to start, okay? We're going to start with opening night. Fireworks.
Fireworks indeed. We've got Stefan Deneuve, who's been opening the season for us with festive fireworks for quite a few years now. This happens to be his last year as associate conductor at or guest conductor at Philadelphia. So I don't want to say he's never coming back to spec, but for those of you who love Stefan Deneuve, this is a must-be at event that night. He'll be conducting another performance that week, a couple performances that week. But fireworks, 1812 Overture, it's just a fun night, great music, and big lush scores that are just going to be fabulous. So.
I know people that just set their calendar by that opening night just because of it's just always fun, it's big, it's majestic, and there's fireworks, right?
Totally.
Let's face it. Okay, let's move into the first week here. We have, and I'm going to have to look at my notes here because I just don't want to mess this up. The Thursday, it's Time for 3, Triple Concerto, and Time for 3 of the soloists that I was referring to before. These 3 soloists have performed and done music for everybody in jazz, from Brubeck to Marsalis. The list of artists that they have worked with, or the composers that they've worked with, it's just insane, right?
Well, they are insane. I mean,
yes,
insane are the best, and I had the privilege of working with them when I was at IMG, and then when I went to Universal, I signed them. They were some of the first artists I signed to Universal.
Oh, wow.
We made their first major label album with them. And what I love about them is they're 3 string players, and they're all classically trained, but one of them came from a jazz background, one came from more of an urban background, and one came from more of a bluegrass background, the original band. So they're kind of like the absolute embodiment of the way music is going these days, where they've got these incredible creds, Curtis trained and everything, but they've also bring like today's musical world together in one group and just have this amazing I can never find the right words because what they do is so unique. And so Kevin Putz, who's a Pulitzer Prize winning composer, one of the hottest, most amazing young composers out there, is writing a new concerto for them, and we've got the East Coast premiere. So come back to hear something you've never heard before, and with these incredibly talented guys performing a triple concerto for 2020. And we've got another triple concerto that week, which is the Beethoven triple the following night with Joshua Bell, Jeremy Dank, and Stephen Isserlis. So it'll be really cool to hear back-to-back nights, this form of a triple concerto, or in other words, 3 musicians playing a concerto as opposed to a violinist or a pianist. You've got the group playing a concerto with the orchestra.
Wow. Again, cool. If Time for 3, if ever there was a way to make your instruments sound like voices, it's just absolutely incredible what they can do.
Totally amazing.
Isn't it? First week winds up with, it's summer, so it's Star Wars.
Yes, I know. I will be staying from start to finish for that one.
I know, me too.
So much fun.
No matter how many times you've heard that score or whatever, or seen it with the film, it's like the first time. It's almost like when you go through your guide on television and it pops up, and you're supposed to be watching the news or something, but you go and you think to yourself, I think I can watch Return of the Jedi maybe like one more time. It never gets old.
No, and those scores are just killer.
They are killer scores. Talking about killer scores, we're going to move into the other weeks right now. It's Beethoven. I think it's 250th anniversary.
Yep.
I can't lay claim that I was there. You know me, I like to talk about the old days. It's back. I wasn't there 250 years ago.
Oh my God.
But holy mackerel.
Yeah.
All 9 symphonies. And I had to go back over this 3 times to make sure that I heard it right, and
Yeah.
then I counted it correctly.
Yeah.
And Yannick is conducting all 9.
Yeah, so here's one where you can't get this anyplace else in the world but Saratoga, because Yannick is conducting all 9 Beethoven symphonies at Carnegie Hall with the Philadelphia Orchestra, but it's over the course of a whole year. And the same in Philadelphia. Here, he is conducting all 9 symphonies in 4 consecutive nights. One of the greatest conductors in the world today, conducting one of the greatest orchestras in the world today, probably the most powerful, magisterial body of classical repertoire ever written.
That's right.
The whole traversal will happen here in the amphitheater over 4 nights this summer. You can't do this anyplace else.
It's absolutely phenomenal. When you talk about heavy lifting, this orchestra, and I'll give you an example, on Wednesday the 12th, they're performing 3 symphonies back to back. You know, I said to Elizabeth before, I said, if you had to pick one of the 9 as your favorite, and we both sat here just staring into space, it's really hard.
Oh, it's impossible.
I think it is impossible, because every time you hear something
Yeah.
in those symphonies, it relates to something in your life.
Yeah.
It's just so embedded in our DNA,
Yeah.
these symphonies.
Yeah.
And for that orchestra to rehearse these symphonies like that and to perform them back to back with Yannick conducting.
Yeah.
Now, this is not the only place that he's doing this, right?
No, he is doing the traversal at Carnegie Hall with Philadelphia.
Right.
But literally over the course of a whole season, right?
Yes, right,
And then
right, sure.
same at the Kimmel Center. So the
But not like
concentration
Tracy.
of this,
Right.
And so closing night of those, those 4 nights will be the Ninth Symphony with the Ode to Joy. And so we're going to have Albany Pro Musica and a huge chorus. I think it's like 200-member chorus. It's going to be massive. So that closing night with the Beethoven 9 Ode to Joy is going to be pretty amazing.
That's pretty spectacular. And again, just set your calendars now, because, and I don't think I could ever lay claim to the fact that I've ever heard an orchestra do Beethoven symphonies back to back. But can you
I
imagine
never
how
have.
immersed in that music
Yeah.
you're going to get
Oh, yeah.
by just hearing that? Something
I
that's
mean,
familiar and yet
By the
so
way,
engrossing.
it's rarely, I looked back when we were planning this with Philadelphia. It's been done very few times. Forget about Yannick and Philadelphia, which is, one of the great collaborations of all time. But it just doesn't get done in 4 nights, period, because of how difficult
Intense.
and intense
That's
it
right,
is.
yeah.
So it's really remarkable, and it really does speak to the relationship with Spack and Yannick and the orchestra, because this is not something he's doing anyplace else. It is very intense, and we asked for it, and he.
Well, it's their
said
summer
yes.
home, and they've
Yeah.
always loved coming here.
Yeah,
Honest
they
to
really
God,
do.
Elizabeth, they've always loved coming here.
Yeah,
It's
really
again,
great.
it's Saratoga. It's the
Yeah.
magic of Saratoga that we've talked about many times. We're going to talk about shifting gears here.
Let's shift.
Where's Bugs Bunny?
Well, he's going to be at SPAC, and it's the 30th anniversary, and people. There are people out there I know, they're like, why are you doing films with orchestra? Why are you doing cartoons and everything? Well, by the way, this is some of the best music. If you actually listen to the music and you hear these scores, this is some of the greatest music of all time. And by the way, I wish Bugs Bunny were still around. Like, so many people I know were introduced to classical music through these cartoon scores. So it's really funny, because people of my generation love this because it was part of your growing up. Obviously, parents love bringing their kids to Bugs Bunny. But I actually, one night I was on the patrons in the patrons club, and a couple of our members, donors, whatever, were there with their 30-something children, right? And I went over, I was doing a little unofficial market survey, and I went over and I was asking them about certain things that we were thinking of doing. And one of them was Bugs Bunny, and they were all like, "Oh, Bugs Bunny, are you kidding me?" I'm like, "But you're 30-ish, like why?" They were totally into it. So it's interesting how it really hits like multiple generations.
I want to cycle back on one thing you said.
Okay.
So many people, so many kids were introduced to orchestral music by the soundtracks that we're talking about.
Absolutely
As
true.
by the way, Warner Brothers, the studio that owns it, actually has released CDs of just the music of these cartoons, which would knock your head off.
That's right.
2 other things regarding the orchestra. We've got a night of Porgy and Bess. Usually you hear excerpts from Porgy and Bess,
Yeah.
but you never hear the musical, right?
So the thing is, at SPAC, we have done something called highlights from, I think highlights from Porgy and Bess over the last couple of years.
Yes,
Obviously,
yeah, sure.
summertime and
Right,
like some of the
right,
great,
right. Music.
music is from that. But what we've done in the past was all orchestral. And what we're doing now is essentially the full Porgy and Bess. We'll have five vocal soloists. We'll have a big choir. Morgan State Choir is coming up from, Morgan State Chorus is coming up from Philadelphia.
Wow.
And so it's going to be magnificent. Marin Alsop is conducting. That is going to be, particularly for people who love musical theater, love Porgy and Bess. I mean, that's just going to be also another magical evening. Great
Not to
singers, great
mention the
music.
story, which is pure Americana.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
True classic.
It is, without a doubt. And closing out the season, whew, quickly, Harry Potter.
You can't have a SPAC summer now. I think this is the fourth year in a row, third year in a row. I can't. I think this is number 4 for us. And they've just been such popular evenings. I mean, we have some of our biggest turnouts all summer are for Harry Potter, and adults and children seem to love it equally. So.
Well, if you ever want to see a bunch of young sorcerers, you might want to come that night. You know, we've interviewed kids on the lawn,
Yeah.
and they're just so excited to be
Yeah.
here. And think about audience development. You just think about
Totally.
that's their exposure to this beautiful
Totally.
world that we're talking about. We're out of time. See part 2 of this interview. Go to our website, looktvonline.com, and we'll be back for part 3, which is Chamber.